Hi, hello, welcome to another episode of Man with a Mentor. I am the man, your host, Matthew Barnard, and you may be wondering what a show called Man with a Mentor may be about. And basically, it's about me talking to people who've had a lifelong passion for doing what they want to do, and they go out there and they're doing it. And I have a guy here right now, and his name is Rich Begel. And he's amazing, and I'm going to say a little introductory statement about you now, and hopefully I won't mess it up. All right, say Richard Begel is a member of the Dayton Philharmonic's trombone section since 2003, the author of a modern guide for trombonists and other musicians, a teacher of all brass instruments to people in youth orchestras, in college, in military and professional ensembles, and is in the German polka rock comedy band, the Claberheads, and his own band, the Flying Klezmerians.
Very good.
Let's go back, because you're obviously doing a lot of music stuff. When did it start? How did it start?
Sure.
What's that first memory of music in your world?
Well, as a young child, both of my older sisters had piano lessons. And so I heard that music ringing throughout the house because the piano is kind of central. And,
right.
And I think that was really some early influence before I got my piano lessons. And it infuses you with a musical sense, as well as the songs they would sing in temple. I wasn't that into the other parts of temple, but the music, if I had a reason to go, that was it. So then I got the piano lessons myself, and that was pretty young, probably 6 or 7 years old, maybe even starting 1 or 2 years younger. But when the trombone came along, offered by the school on a form to choose your instrument, I didn't know much about it. I just knew I wanted something that didn't seem small and delicate. So I picked trombone, and I was right. And it overtook the piano in my interest. I was probably just a little better at reading one line of music than using all 10 fingers and 2 feet.
Was your family on board with you spending a lot of time? Or were they Rich, do your math homework and stop playing that trombone? Or did they think that this is going to be his future? Or did they just think he likes this, but he's going to go on and do something else? Or were you oh no, this is what I want to do? When did you know, this is what I want to do?
I think they wanted me to do my homework also, but I refused. So, well, first of all, the family was supportive. It was something that my mother in particular was supportive with, making sure that I got lessons. And when the teacher stopped coming to our house, he said, I just can't do this travel anymore. We got to his house with her help, and always out to concert. The interest, I think, for me and a lot of people took hold from more reasons than just liking music. And the way I think of it, in 4th grade band, which is when band started where I'm from in New York, you had these classes on just your instrument besides the band. And in those classes of just your instrument, there was no hiding in the back row. There's only, let's say, 3 or 4 trombone players, and you get some of that special attention that you don't get in the other classes, the more traditional, I'm going to lecture and you take notes and spit it back on a test. Mm-hmm. So trombone, also you're holding something and doing something, which is more engaging than trying to absorb information and spit it back on a test.
Right.
That said, teaching is probably better now than when I was a kid. But this held my interest for reasons like that.
So when did you kind of put out into the world, I'm not going to have a traditional career?
In 11th grade, I did what my school had a community internship, they called it. I got to go back to the middle school I had attended and work alongside the band director. So I was like in a music education community internship. And with the look of that background, you would think that I'm heading to college to be a music ed major, come back to my town or any other, and apply for the music teaching jobs. However, I had this other bug, and I really wanted to pursue performance, see if I could get a career playing the instrument as much, like 50% that, 50% teaching, or more playing and having the teaching that goes with it naturally, because people seek you out when you get good as a player. So I wanted to pursue playing as interest number one. And I think the parental requirement that I referred to was do the ed major so that way we'll help pay for college. That's the way I remember it. So what I did is a double major in music ed and performance, and I went to my high school band director's alma mater, the Crane School of Music in Potsdam, New York, way upstate.
Right. Well, let's stop talking about education of playing and have you play something like right now. And how long do you practice now, and how long did you have to practice when you were a kid? And do you like practicing, or is it a necessary evil, or how do you look at it?
I don't count the hours as much as I try to do what's required. And I tend to think holistically. So there are so many skills, I'll call them the dualities, that a person needs to do to be a musician. You have to be able to play high and low, loud and soft, fast and slow. The slow would be an indicator of breath support, that you were asking about. And so with so many skills needed, there's no shortage of what to practice. And when you're coming up, say college ages, the hours are very high and life is unbalanced at that time. If you are looking at all those different skills and trying to fit them into a practice session, it was not uncommon for me to just be practicing 4 to 6 hours a day at college outside of the rehearsals for a variety of groups that I would be in. I would join everything, all the college ensembles that had a trombone. So since then, other parts of life get in the way, but there are times you have to close the door and get yourself prepared for what's required, and it never can hit 4 to 6 hours a day. Now, I have kids, and well, that's probably an explanation enough.
Right. When you did graduate, was there a time when you were kind of in floating around, like not knowing like how to find the gigs or the jobs, or like is that something they kind of let you know how to do, or is there just no real clear path to make it happen? You just have to stagger around and figure it out.
Yeah, there's definitely a long list of things that you don't learn in school that you learn on the jobs after. And basically, I was fueled highly by ambition, and with that fuel, you find out what you need to know. Sometimes the hard way, sometimes making a mistake twice. But what that is hopefully when you're in college, you have some good guidance, and that's why you're there. So I was very green, very naive out of my undergrad, which was kind of in farm country of northern New York, still a great school. But when I went to grad school in the big city, for me it was Boston, it was New England Conservatory, you get with players who also want a master's degree in this and got into a very competitive environment, and you're with teachers who play in bigger, higher paid symphonies in that circumstance, because I did, a liberal arts school for bachelor's and a music school for master's there. And with that guidance and being around those teachers in that environment, you just need to keep practicing, and you try to get gigs. You get regional orchestras. These are lower paid things, often filled by students in the areas near big schools, big music schools, that is. And sometimes you go to a different regional orchestra and it's all the same people. and the actual people scheduling two orchestras that are 30 miles apart will consult, because they know they're using the same musicians, and they'll consult and try not to schedule at the same time.
Right.
So I just kept getting lessons, auditioning for smaller orchestras when you would hear about them. You join the musicians union when you have to, and when you have to means that someone in the city calls you for a gig and says, to play this job, you have to be in the union. You pay your fees, you play that job, and then you start getting this paper in the mail. Now it's online and in the mail, called the International Musician. And in the back of that paper are the want ads. And it'll say, Random Symphony X has a position for trombone. Here's what it pays. Here's when the audition is. Here's where to send your resume. And they will invite the people whose resumes pass that first round, and then you go to the audition day.
Did you have a mentor that you really relied on, in those college days? And what would you say to that person? Now, would you say thank you for telling me this? Why didn't you tell me that? Or,
well, I still do talk to him.
Oh yeah.
So all of my teachers were wonderful over the years. I felt a particular connection to that master's degree teacher at New England. He is a guy who had played in Boston Symphony, and his name's Norman Bolter. And things that he said that amounted to little nuggets of wisdom that kind of bloomed throughout your life, because I didn't realize just how significant they were, and I would be using these things later with my own students, and still in my own practice these 25 years later. I tell him when I speak to him that I still use that information with students, and he still teaches, and I join in a class online once in a while.
Let's talk about teaching in your book, A Modern Guide for Trombonists and Other Musicians.
I actually lay that out for students. I tell them, here's what you need to do to be successful, but I personally am not going to scream at you or yell at you or make you feel bad. I don't think that's not who I am, and it's not the way that I would bring you to your success, but you can count on me to tell you the truth. And so what you need to achieve this music, what you need to achieve this goal with your music in life, here's what it will require, but I'm not going to yell at you. And what I think that does for students, and what I sort of, in the background, I'm hoping it does for students, is make them self-motivated. If they're not already,
right.
It might be a slower process than just forcing your student to be a good soldier and being that taskmaster until they get something right. Maybe that's faster, but not as long-lasting, in my opinion, where what I try to do is teach them what it takes to get it coming from their own motivation.
Right. Do you think that there is a lot of people who play well, or to a degree of being a good musician, but just aren't going to have the stuff to, go through auditions or make it to be the coveted spot? I mean, you're interviewing for kind of it for spot, and I don't know, if you were to audition for a trombone symphony or something now, like would there be 5 of you or would there be 500 of you?
Starting with the student, I would almost never discourage someone from trying what they want to try, because you just don't know when something comes from a certain place within a person, their drive can overcome lower talent than the student they're sitting next to. And the higher talented student with lower drive can make less progress a couple of years later. So, and I have had the experience of being that student, I think, high drive, medium talent, where a teacher who hadn't heard me in a few years heard me again, sounding better. I had continued study, and he said, that he was a little worried when I got up there because maybe I wasn't good when I was younger, and I got good. Right. And I just would never, you try to see in students who they can become, not just who they are right now. And a lot of those things are personality and drive more than what you sound like in this very moment, and that's really called teaching. And regarding the auditions, I brought 2 different kind of horns with me today because my career is has a few different paths. Because the orchestra that I won an audition for is very much a part-time orchestra. So I do other things as well. And those other things require a different sound and a different style of instrument. And so when it comes to the orchestral part of life, where my big horn is the one you use for that, it's a very challenging process. I mentioned you see that ad in the newspaper, and it is not usually 500 for any one position, but it's closer to that than 5. It can be 300 resumes go to an orchestra, and unless they have a policy of we hear everybody who applies, which used to be the case more, they will weed out some resumes, or they'll mail the candidate back a note that says, you have the option to send us a recommendation from a well-known teacher, or you have the option to send us a recording. And we're going to go through recordings before we invite you to the audition. And some people do just get invited based on the resume. So when you get there that day, there could be 300, and it could be spread out over 3 or 4 days. And the last day is the finals. I could tell you more about the process, but it's behind a screen, and you get to play for the same little sections of pieces called excerpts, the important parts in my case for trombone, for you to be good at to play in an orchestra. The famous lines for your instrument is what they need to hear to know you'll be good when you have your moment. And
oh my gosh.
And then at the end of every round, which had between 6 and 10 people, usually the personnel manager comes out and says, candidates number 17 through 24, the committee wants to thank you all for coming, but will not need to hear any of you again, so it's like thank you for your efforts. Thank you very much.
It's like a chorus line, but with pieces of brass.
But sometimes they come out and say, candidates number 17 through 24, we need to hear number 19 and 22 again. Come back at 5, and they'll play in the smaller round where only the best 10 or 15 people made it, and that goes down and down until there's one person left or the orchestra decides not to hire anybody at the end of that process, which is more common than you would think.
Let's talk about what the differences are between being like one of, I don't know how many, but in a philharmonic orchestra, you're probably one of a few. Whereas if you're hired to be in a band, or you're in a band, or if you form your own band, then you're more like the band leader and the one driving the train. Like, are all those completely different in your mind? Like, do you have a preference for one or the other? Do you like to have
very
creative
much.
control, or do you just? Some people love to be just one of the 6 on stage that are playing the French horn or whatever, and they don't want to be the one giving the solos, and that makes them incredibly scared.
In an orchestra, depending on the music you're playing, between 60 and 90 people on stage, you're a cog in a wheel, and you try to do well. And if your instrument plays alone a little bit, you can insert some style, like a little vibrato or very subtle things, but mostly you're that cog in a wheel fitting your sound into the right time, and that's your job in an orchestra. And the smaller the ensemble you go, the more important your voice is. Right. And I like that better. Almost like within orchestra, it's paying some bills, but the more creative work is in the smaller bands that I do. Would now be a time to tell you about those?
Yes, talk about them and tell them how people can find them and all that stuff. Yeah.
One where I am not the group leader is that German pop rock polka party band called the Claberheads that you mentioned, where I'm in a horn section there with trumpet, trombone, sax, and the rest of the band is what you would expect, and a few things you wouldn't expect. Guitar, bass, drums, piano, but also there's a steel drum player who's a band leader and singers, and it's a band that's been in the same family for 95 years. It's really unique. And I think what makes that fun is the colleagues. It's great people, and the horn section, the people on both my sides, and we've taken it upon ourselves to be some extra musical entertainment. The horn section will there's a lot of masks and costumes and dancing and audience interaction and jumping around and getting people involved, and it's really kind of hard to describe without seeing it. You can find them on YouTube or Facebook and probably other social media. Claberheads with a K. Right. Other things that I do that I enjoy so much.
What was the other one? The flying klezmer?
The flying klezmerians.
Let's hear about that.
Klezmer is a style of music that is very old Jewish wedding music, and the famous one that seemed to last through this art form becoming less popular with the masses, the famous piece is Hava Nagila. Oh, so if you think of that song, you have some idea of klezmer, and that's your elevator speech, but of course it's much more deep and rich and complicated, and is probably, for me, the most musically rewarding thing I do, but it plays kind of the least in performance. There's, I try to seek gigs, and I put in the legwork as much as I can with all the other things I do, and I get us a few each year. Right. And it's a good time, and my particular one has trombone, clarinet, trumpet, accordion, and drums. That's the 5 main pieces we go out with, and sometimes we need a sub because my clarinetist or trumpet player can't come, and we have a violinist that we use, and we do some incredible other things. We have mixed with a Latin klezmer band who's based out of Miami, and they've come up and mixed with our band, and we've done Latin klezmer. We've mixed with a Louis Armstrong artist who lives very close by in Springfield, right. And we've combined what he does with what we do, and that is a band that can play a lot of variety and a lot of styles because the musicians are so good. But that klezmer style is the thrust, and we enjoy that.
Right. Do you want to promote your own site or where people can find you?
Sure.
And all that stuff? Yeah.
Well,
let's do it.
I gave the Claberheads their plug. The Flying Klezmerians, if you can figure out how to spell that all in one word, T-H-E, flying, Klezmerians, the Flying Klezmerians, have their own website, Facebook page, and YouTube channel, and you'll see and hear some, if you've never heard it before, some interesting and really exciting music that is really designed to get a crowd dancing. Other things I do, I have to say, that is not on your list yet,
Right.
is that I often work with the company in Dayton called the Muse Machine.
Oh, right.
And while they put on theater productions, I do something different with them. I write shows, and I've just finished my fourth one that's performs 25 or 30 times throughout the Dayton area schools. And I've done a Latin show with them and some comedy things. We did a musical Mythbusters one and a trivia show that we did with old recording devices and CDs and tapes and reel-to-reels, and the students had to guess when this equipment was from based on the time. And the Mythbusters one was a brass trio, and that was a science-y comedy-based thing.
Well, I want to thank you, Richard Begel, and you're going to take us out of here, but you're going to play us something right now, but I'm going to thank you again. And this is Richard Begel, awesome, amazing trombone player, teacher, mentor, and everything. I'm so excited to have you here and show all your talent. Thank you, Richard.
Thanks so much.